Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the CIAT Architectural Technology event as part of the Student Futures SEBI Student Opportunities Week. And thanks again to Emily and Cheryl and the Student Futures team for extending us an invite to speak with you all today. So today I'm very pleased to be joined by a panel that represents CIAT Scotland East Region, and all of us represent the AT professional community across the country, namely Edinburgh, Glasgow and Aberdeen. So today we have with us Amy Dixon, who's an Associate CIAT member from HOCO and an AT alumna from Napier 2020. We have Alex Stickle, Associate CIAT member from Cumming & Co, Chair of CIAT Aspiration Scotland East, and an AT alumna from RGU 2020, and Oliver Hibbs, MCIAT from Sumner MacDonald Architects and CIAT Scotland East Region Secretary, and an AT alumni from RGU 2012, and finally myself, a CIAT affiliate member from Building Research Solutions and Chair of CIAT Scotland East Region, and an AT alumni 2007. So thank you to my panel today for taking the time out of their schedule to be with us today. And if we have a look at what's coming up next. So this event might be slightly different from the other events that you guys have attended today in the SEBI Futures week. The message today is one of context, reassurance and experience from early and mid-career ATs. I have with me 3 professional ATs, and over the next 45 minutes or so we'll be covering content to help demystify the pathways from education to employment, describe the condition of the employment market for the ATs, and to describe employment pathways that students or early career ATs want to explore. And all round, myself and the panel will be just giving general guidance, support for anyone looking for employment in general. And at the end of our session, I will hand over to Cheryl from Student Futures to present what support is available to ENU students. Now, we're very grateful to Student Futures for opening this event to students and early career ATs outside of Napier. For Cheryl's session, she'll be speaking directly to Napier students and alumni. If you're not a Napier student or alumni, please do hang around for the Q&A section. We really welcome questions from anyone at any stage of their career or anyone at any part of the country. So before I hand over to my colleagues, I want us to open this event with some context as to why CIAT Scotland East Region are here in the first place. So you know that many of the attendees here are studying or have studied at ENU and RGU, and as to have all of our panel. But I want to tell you that as far as AT education and career progression is concerned, you have already made a very strong choice in progressing your AT profession. Both ENU and RGU are classified by CIAT as Centres of Excellence, which from our perspective, from CIAT's perspective, this means that you're being taught or your modules are being influenced by researchers and scientists that are contributing significantly to the evolution of our profession. So very strong start to your AT career. Now, allow me just to briefly introduce the CIAT geographical regions. And as far as CIAT are concerned, Scotland has 2 regions. Wales and Northern Ireland has 1 each, and England's divided into 12 regions. So we may have some people here today that would fall into the Northern England or Yorkshire or North West regions of England. So whilst we have 2 regions in Scotland, and both regions have separate committees, our student-centric element of our regions, known collectively as Aspirations, and our social media team are very much linked. So we don't postcode check people when you join or want to contribute to a CIAT region. So whilst I'm from Northern Ireland and I live in West Lothian, which could be construed as the CIAT East-West Scotland border, I chair Scotland East region. And both regions have members that work and live in other regions. The most important thing is that you connect with at least one region and you get involved as much as you want, and you help to shape the future of the way AT looks in that region, which Alex will talk a little bit later about how to get involved from an early career perspective. Now, I'm going to hand over to our panel. So first up, we've got Amy. Amy is joining us today to speak about her pathway and experience from college to university to HOCO, her experience with finding a job and securing that job, and general advice about looking for work during a pandemic and things you can do between interviews and between trimesters to help diversify your skill set. So Amy will then hand over to Oliver. Oliver will hand over to Alex, and Alex will back to me, and then I will finish up with 15 minutes or so of just general context and some guidance on how to strategically place yourself for looking for new jobs. So, Amy, I'll pass over to you if you're ready.
Sure, yeah. I'll just try and share my screen. Okay, so hi everybody, my name's Amy Dixon. As if you didn't know who I was already from my screen, I've put a photos of myself as well. I am a recent AT graduate from Edinburgh Napier University, graduating in July of last year, and I am now an architectural technologist at HOCO, the Homeowners Architect in Glasgow. You may see some of me going about university, more last year of course, but so I hope I'm a familiar face to some. But yeah, I'll just give a timeline of me and how I've gotten to where I am at the moment, and some advice that I would give myself to look back on this time last year, and obviously if it helps anybody, that would be great. So me personally with my timeline, so I kind of accidentally fell into AT. I got recommended it from a Graph Com teacher in high school. So I went to the interview and I thought, this sounds great. So I started college in 2014 and very quickly realised that this was something that I definitely wanted to do. So in 2016, I graduated in my HND, Architectural Technology. During my last few months at college, I was offered a placement with HTA in Edinburgh, an architectural firm, as a project assistant. So while I was there, I helped with the built environment team, and we worked on large commercial buildings and large residential projects as well. Although I really loved my time here, I certainly started to realise that I liked working as a slightly smaller team, really close with other members, getting to know clients, etc. So moving forward, I finished there in 2017 and then started at Edinburgh Napier University in my second year in 2017. So yeah, I started university, and the next year in 2018, going into my third year, I definitely wanted to push more from that love of working with other people. And having come from college to uni, I felt like that was quite a big jump. So I decided to start peer mentoring while I was at university, and also worked as a student assistant, where I hope some of you might remember me from. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. To me, not only was it I was helping others, even if it was just in a slight way, I felt like I was really growing a lot as well, getting to know my peers around me and really networking with people, because certainly even people that I have helped as a student peer back in my third year at university, I'm still in contact with now. So that has been a huge opportunity for me. Then obviously going into my final year, I won't say what happened, but obviously March last year, our new reality began. So certainly I was sat in my bedroom doing my final year project, probably more in my bedroom than I ever thought it would be. So that was certainly very interesting. But I knew what my final goal was, and I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to graduate with the best grade I could. So really, really pushed myself, and ultimately had a graduation in the garden in July 2020. So yeah, that was great. And then obviously coming out of university, really unsure of what's actually going to happen, sort of the current climate and everything else, but I knew what I wanted and I knew what I was after. So between July and November, I started taking up online classes. I started learning Revit myself a lot more, and just doing other things to help myself grow, trying to learn what company I wanted to work for, knowing from working at a large firm, wanting to sort of streamline myself into something smaller to work with people, and ultimately I found HOCO. And luckily enough, in November 2020, I was offered a position as an architecture technologist with HOCO in November. So although I've been in the office 4 months, I've actually only been there 2 weeks in the office physically, but it's been amazing and I've loved it so far, and it's definitely been something different, but yeah, I've definitely loved it. So interviewing, one thing I will say is, first off, it really isn't all that bad. I think we all get in our minds that interviewing is really terrifying, it's really scary. You're going to get in there and they're going to ask you all these technical, scary questions that you might know the answer to and you might stumble, but it's really not. At the end of the day, it's about you. You need to be confident, be yourself, because you could be in a room with 20 other people who have the same grade as you, but what makes you different, what makes you stand out? Sell that. Take an extra copies of your portfolio and work. Let the interviewee keep them. Really show them why they should hire you compared to anything else. And as well, at the end of the day, I personally probably applied for about 30 practices, and being generous, I probably only heard from about a third back. So don't feel disheartened if you don't get any feedback or you don't hear anything, because I mean, it's these times as well. At the end of the day, if you want to message them and ask for feedback, do that, but don't be disheartened. Keep going for it. You've worked hard until this point and you should be proud of yourself, so keep going. But interviewing really isn't all as bad as you really think it is, and that's, I wish I told myself that a year ago, so really don't worry about it. So advice, again, if I could give it to myself, is don't give up. You've gotten to this point, whether you're still a student, whether you've graduated, you're doing a master's, you're working now, you've worked so hard to get to this point, so don't give up. Things might be tough now, but just believe in yourself and know that all that hard work will all come together eventually. Sounding a bit inspirational here, but like, I really wish I had somebody to tell me this, all this. So, and at the end of the day, like, you're not the only person who will be going through all of this. So if you need to talk to your peers or talk to those around you, then do that. And things may feel uncomfortable. Maybe just going for an interview makes you feel uncomfortable, but the way I've always thought of it was, if I'm getting the train to an interview, by the time I'm getting the train back, I'm so proud of myself, I've smashed it. So all I think about going there is, oh, I'm going to smash it. Just give yourself all these positive thoughts and it will really manifest itself. Again, it sounds so inspirational, but it is so true. People say all the time, but it's so true. So for me now, working at HOCO, this is the team that I work with now. Danny Campbell in the bottom right corner there doing a very fancy pose. He is the architect and founder of HOCO in 2016. And just to give you an idea of the growth that companies are still having regardless of the pandemic or anything else. HOCO's main focus has always been the perfect client experience. And that's something that really drew me personally, and it definitely shows. Compared to February last year, in the top left corner, that was every member that was in HOCO. That was all the staff. There was 4 people, and now today there's 22 members of staff. And looking as well at clients, in February last year there was only 4 clients. Now we've got 41. And again, with architects, that's grown from 1 to 9, and technicians is 3 to 10. And I know certainly even since I've been there, we've hired another 4, and I've only been there 4 months. So that kind of growth to me is really inspiring, and it shows me that if you work hard and you get there, you can get the jobs. And even with the current climate that's going on, it isn't anything you need to worry about or be concerned about. As well, with HOCO, we've launched so many other things as well. We've got HOCO Design, but we've also got HOCO Build, which was launched in June of 2020. And HOCO Shop, which was launched in December 2020. So yeah, certainly, all in all, basically what I'm trying to say is, don't worry, everything's fine. It'll be okay. And if you just believe in yourself and what makes you different, and you focus on that and be confident in yourself, then yeah, you'll smash it. You'll do great. So yeah, I'll pass you on to Oliver now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone at Napier, for having me along. I am Oliver Hibbs, as it says down the bottom there, and I am I don't like calling myself an early career professional because I've been graduated since 2012 from RGU. If you can think back that long, what were you doing in 2012? I was graduating and looking for a job. As I say, studied at RGU, leaving school back in 2008, that was even longer ago, and sort of as similar to Amy, I suppose, almost sort of stumbled into architectural technology, but very glad that I did, because I think, speaking to lots of architect friends I have, architecture at university would not have been for me. I prefer very much the technical and detail side of things. And I also enjoyed making lots of models at uni, and I made an awful lot of models in my time at university. I became sort of the model guy, and that's something that has thankfully carried on for me through my career. I did my dissertation, as lots of you will have done as well, in Aberdeen, on the cleaning of granite buildings. That will be relevant, we'll come back to that. And lots more lovely pictures of models. I also started making some models for some of the university lecturers at the university who had their own practices, so we made some lovely big plywood models. Graduated 2012, don't I look happy? And then straight onto the job hunt. I've just realised I've not made this full screen, but it doesn't matter. Straight onto the job hunt from pretty much the day after I graduated, once the hangover had cleared up. And looking for a job in Aberdeen in 2012, there weren't so many architecture jobs. I started in 2008 at the sort of the peak of the financial crisis, when people were being let go of jobs left, right and centre. Thankfully that had all sort of subsided a bit by the time I actually started looking for jobs. But being in Aberdeen, being the oil capital of Europe, most of my classmates all went off to get jobs in oil, and I was one of the few who thought, no, I don't want to work on designing washers and things like that for oil rigs. I want to stick in architecture. I had, as part of my university course, done a simulated professional practice where we brought in a local business owner who wanted to develop a piece of land, and got to know this business owner, and ended up working for him in the end, because one of the models I made for a university lecturer, he ended up, his practice, working for this same business owner to develop their piece of land, and ended up getting a job working at Benevolent Granite, which was a supplier of granite, I suppose, ultimately for houses, for offices, for buildings where you'd have brick. In Aberdeen you have granite, basically. And I ended up doing lots of interesting projects there, and lots of interesting drawings where you draw out every single stone that goes into a building, which sounds really boring, and it was at times. But it being first job out of university, the most important thing that it could ever sort of teach you, I suppose, is that if you draw something on a drawing and it gets made like that and it ends up being wrong, it costs money, which was something that I naively hadn't really appreciated whilst at university, that mistakes do cost money and someone has to pay for it. But yes, as I said, spent about 2.5 years there drawing out stones for buildings, which again sounds boring, but it was interesting, and I had an interest in building stone and granite from doing my dissertation way back in the day. However, in 2015, I thought, no, I don't really want to stay up in Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire anymore. I want to move to Edinburgh. And my initial job hunt began for working in an architecture practice, and that was quite a lengthy process. I think I must have gone to about 30 different job interviews, applied for hundreds of jobs and sent out hundreds of CVs speculatively, and ended up eventually moving to and getting a job with Smith, Scott, Mullen Associates, who are a medium size, so sort of about 25 staff practice in the middle of Edinburgh. And I say I eventually got that job. I had an interview there in January of 2015, and I think I ended up getting the job in June. So that's sort of 5-6 months from having the interview to actually getting the job, which is a bit of a theme, as we'll come on to with me. So I spent 5.5 years at Smithcott Mullen, doing lots of interesting buildings, even one for Napier University. Did some sort of nice smaller scale stuff as well as larger scale stuff. This was an extension in the middle of the new town in Edinburgh. Lovely bathroom that we did for them. And I think through working on smaller projects, I found out that I wanted to continue to work on smaller projects. A nice little extension to an existing building I did in Stranraer as well. And I think this might be moving on to site now. There's some of the Practice's first passive house projects I became involved in, working in Revit and working alongside lots of very interesting sort of design team individuals and a client who were very keen to push the passive house side of things. And as I say, I think it's possibly got planning by now, I'm not quite sure, and it's certainly hopefully hoping to move on to site. I also, whilst there, managed to attain my chartership from Ciat, which was quite an achievement since it was all done working at home, including the interview, which is quite an unusual experience, having to do that from home. But I did end up, sort of the middle of last year, end up thinking I want to focus more on smaller projects, not getting to do that where I am, so started applying for a couple of other jobs, and Sumner MacDonald Architects, also based in the middle of Edinburgh, I think were advertising a job in July, started that in January this year, so again sort of another 5-6 month lead into a job, and they're sort of doing nice high-end extensions and alterations to houses, which is what I'll be working on. And progressing through building warrants. So that's sort of where I am just now, I suppose. In terms of how to get that first job, it's a tricky one. I would tend to treat your career progression as a project, and I would start with a CV and see that this was my previous CV, this is my current CV. As you can sort of see from them just being both on the screen, they're quite finely honed graphic things, I suppose. And I spent far too much time on the layout of these and the typeface selection. Once I'd got the content of them down, I spent far too long sort of nitpicking. In my current, where I am just now, when I did get to an interview with them, these bits highlighted was pretty much all we talked about, which was software and what I'm interested in. And the fact that I could sneak that I'm interested in craft beer and whiskey into my CV, I was quite pleased about. And we ended up talking about it in the interview. So I think it was definitely relevant. And I would always try and have something a bit unusual on your CV that hopefully if someone's reading through it, they'll go, oh, okay, I'm going to ask them about that. Because if anything, it's a talking point, and you never know quite how people will sort of know things. So, I mean, where I am just now, they ended up working with a craft beer brewery in Edinburgh. So we ended up talking about beer and, oh, did I know the brewery and this and that. And it was just interesting to be able to have another point of discussion besides the architecture side of things, I suppose. Similarly with a portfolio, treat it as a design project. I would say that university projects, especially if you're applying for a job straight out of university with no, I don't want to say real world experience, but no sort of in practice experience, I suppose. I would say a project probably only has a lifespan in a portfolio of 3 years. So I would bear that in mind, and I personally like a pretty minimal aesthetic when it comes to a portfolio. A bit of text, some images on pages, some stuff about interests. Again, I would try and get sort of slightly unusual interests in there if you can, in some way or other. Yeah. Knowledge. What I would say, university is really only the very start of things. Once you've graduated, you've got your certificate and you're looking for jobs, that's when the real work begins, I would say. Definitely, I feel that, not to put down university at all, especially as this is a university event, but I feel I've learned far, far more in practice than I did in university, in the sense that the university knowledge you have gained is hugely important, but when you're having a discussion with someone on site about the best way to do a certain detail, that I think is incredibly useful. Yes, get out on site. Once you've got that first job, once you've landed that first job, get out on site, actually get and look at things. I was involved for a short while in a live build project in Edinburgh, out near, I think, for Bridgend Farm, a bothy they were putting together. I was laying bricks. It was quite fun. And if you've never laid a brick before, you really start to appreciate what brickies do, and that they do it all without really thinking. And I spent about 20 minutes trying to lay one brick. You will never ever know everything. You'll absolutely never know everything. I'll stop you being good. There's no such thing as a stupid question, only a stupid answer. I'm sure someone clever said that, but I'm saying that now as well. Ask every question possible, because if you think it's a stupid question, chances are it's really not. Be detail focused, I would say. That is one of the things that I've found people employing ATs look for, is that they're very detail focused and they like to know how things go together. That's certainly the case with me, that I like to know how bits of a building all fit together and how they all work and interact with another. And you know, I like hand sketching that out. I like graphically representing that in one way or another. I would try and find out if you're a generalist or a specialist. Do you want to focus in on one very particular area, if it's anything to do with visuals, if it's to do with passive house detailing, for example, if it's to do with one particular piece of software, or do you just want to try and do a bit of everything and cover all the bases? There is certainly a lot more to life and your career than architecture, which I found out through leaving university and all of my friends going off to work in oil. And I thought, well, okay, I didn't want to go and work in oil, I wanted to work in architecture, but there are a lot more career paths than just architecture for an AT. And you're not just a Revit monkey. You're absolutely not just a Revit monkey. No matter how many employers might say, oh yeah, well, can you use Revit? Good, you've got the job, because I can use Revit. I'm not using Revit in my new practice, I'm using Vectorworks. I've had to learn that all from scratch. And, you know, just being able to say, or just an employer asking, can you use Revit? And I just think is ridiculous. If you can't explain a concept on a scrap of paper, then what does it matter if you can use Revit or not? I don't think. CPD is hugely important. I also think that you can class absolutely anything as CPD. I mean, I class all sorts of things as CPD, to be honest. Historic Environment Scotland have a huge amount of information, and if I were to give one recommendation at all from today, go and download this book from their website for free, because it's got everything you would ever need to know about working in an existing building. It's just a fantastic book. CEDA, Scottish Ecological Design Association, similarly have lots of good CPD and events and a huge wealth of information on their website. Passive House Trust, if Passive House is a direction you end up moving in, I think it's where the entire built environment should be heading. Similarly, Passive House Institute. CIAT and Aspiration. Alex will come on to talk a lot more about Aspiration, but there's an enormous knowledge base there of people who've done everything before. So definitely ask John, ask me, ask Alex, ask Amy, ask everyone who's associated with CIAT. Just ask us all the questions. I mean, there's so many different architecture websites on that. The AJ is particularly good, I think, and suppliers are very good at giving good CPDs about their products, and Proctor Group is a particularly good one, in fact. As I say, I class anything as CPD if you learn from it, so I listen to a huge amount of podcasts. Life of an Architect is a particularly good one, although it's American. Passive House podcast focuses on Passive House, funnily enough. Design is an incredibly good website and has an incredibly good podcast, and The Business of Architecture is just really, really good. The Modern House and 99% Invisible, and I'm possibly just sort of explaining all these things, and you've heard of them all before, but I don't think it hurts to talk about them. 99% Invisible is just one of the best podcasts around about design and the environment we all live in. Definitely get your name out there through LinkedIn and any means possible. I mean, I got my current job actually through an advert that I saw on Instagram. So definitely don't think that you can only get a job through a job agency or through LinkedIn. The jobs are advertised everywhere. I know a friend who got a job through Gumtree even. He found an architect advertising for a position on there. Definitely get on LinkedIn. And you're not a Revit monkey, just remember that. So, thank you.
I'm Alex. I am the chair of Aspiration Scotland East Region. So I'm here just to tell you a little bit about what Aspiration is, in case you haven't heard of us before, and the importance of networking, which will probably touch on a good few things that Oliver has said as well. So thanks for starting me off. So firstly, a little bit about me. I graduated from RGU in 2020. I went down kind of the regular, I'd say, path of I left school and then went into uni, but I took a year because I left at the end of 5th year and got experience with a property developer and then went straight into my first year at RGU. While studying there, I thankfully managed to get experience over a couple of summers and then studied abroad for a semester in Copenhagen. So I've dotted about a little bit during my time at university, which has definitely helped me in terms of networking and getting involved with CIAT. Nowadays, I'm an associate member of CIAT and the Aspiration Chair, and I've recently started as a graduate AT with Cumming & Co in Aberdeen. And I think I've been in the office the whole time, thankfully, because we can get up to 10 people in the office. But I'm a week and a half in, so I'm loving it so far. So what is Aspiration? It is a subgroup of CIAT that is dedicated to students and graduates and just any aspiring AT professionals that are looking to start their career. The general aims is just to kind of raise awareness of what CIAT is, what ATs are in general, as we tend to be quite a new profession in the built environment, encourage membership and active participation with CIAT, and also to create an active and social environment for you guys to get a good solid network as you work your way into the workplace. So why should you get involved with CIAT and Aspiration? As an Aspiration member, you would have access to all social events run by Aspiration, regardless of what region. So if you happen to be in England somewhere and they have a CPD running, you can attend even if your home base is Scotland East, for example. You'll also have access to possible recruitment and networking opportunities through us, any educational events run by Aspiration and CIAT in general, CPD site visits, any collaborations we do with other professional bodies, and you'll also help us increase recognition of CIAT, which will help build a better reputation for us as a profession and help you in turn in future. So the benefits of being an Aspiration member is you get access to a mentorship program and mock professional membership interviews when you start your chartership process, which will definitely assist you as you lead your way up to your final interview. Structured site visits, opportunities to network with industry professionals, potential links to any graduate schemes and employment opportunities, specifically if the companies are CIAT chartered practices as well. We tend to try and keep strong links with them. And you'll also be eligible to enter some competitions to win some Aspiration accredited awards, which will help you stand out when it comes to job hunting and such in future as well. And you might get a nice trophy too, so that's always good. To become an Aspiration member, you just need to fall into one of these categories. If you are already a student member of CIAT, congratulations, you're already a member of Aspiration. Otherwise, if you've graduated and are no longer a student, you need to become an associate member and be one for less than 5 years, or be a chartered member for less than 5 years. So all in all, you can be with us for like a decade. You can stick around with us and have a really solid network if you attend our CPDs and create a nice little group of people you can constantly see in a professional capacity, which is really nice as well. So my role within Aspiration as the group chair is to coordinate and attend Aspiration meetings and regional committee meetings on your behalf, organise any social networking and educational events tailored specifically for Aspiration members. Anything in particular, by the way, if you can think of, feel free to tell me later. I'm always looking for new ideas. And also help select winners of any student awards that are accredited by Aspiration. So I'm now going to move on to just the general benefits of networking, because that is obviously a very large part of what Aspiration is. It's just furthering your education and furthering your network at the same time, really. So this is just a general list of benefits I find with networking as well. It creates a space to exchange ideas and gain different perspectives, but also gives you a chance to give your opinion and perspective on other people's projects as well when you're networking. It's very much a two-way street in that sense. You have access to extra resources and such, which is also very handy when it comes to writing dissertations, doing reports and such. If you have a strong network, you can get various opinions, get more people in on your surveys, so on, through using a strong network. Access to career advice and support, and all of these things will obviously increase your self-confidence, because having people tell you you did a good job and vice versa will always help you in the long run, especially when you're just starting out. And in turn, this will help you advance your career as well. Some of the benefits I've personally experienced through my network are listed here. Firstly, the Erasmus Scheme. I got my course leader actually told me about the Erasmus Scheme back in my first year of uni, and since then I was like, yeah, I'm going, that's me set, done. So I spent like 2 years researching where to go, even though I didn't know the full options, and decided on Copenhagen. I went there for 6 months, where I became a bit of a rabbit monkey, I'm sorry. But yeah, so I really enjoyed my time there, and when I came back, I was talking nonstop about how much I loved meeting new people, gaining new experiences, learning from other people's backgrounds and such. So my lecturers told me about a CPD that was running with Built Academy in Motherwell later that year. So I attended that and managed to drag a few people along from my course to that down in Motherwell, and really enjoyed that over the course of 2 days. And then because I'd already had been to Denmark before, I was told about one that was running there in November. And I wouldn't have thought of going to a CPD event type conference abroad before that, but they're also very good for funding you if you want to go. So I highly recommend looking at CPDs regardless of location. If it's something you're interested in, there will be support there for you as well. But yeah, so the one for ICAT in Odense, it ran for almost a week, I think, because they had a 4-day long student competition and then a day CPD, and then of just general conferences. And you got a book with all the research in it as well to take away, which was really handy to have. And then the day after, you just got to explore the city and such as well. So it was a really lovely experience. And lots of CPDs and networking events like that do tend to have some sort of tour involved if it's somewhere that you're not originally from. I also got my role as Aspiration Chair through my network, because I knew the previous chair since my first year of uni, because he came in, Jamie Yorkston, he came in and did a few CPDs with us and such, and already was very aware I loved networking. So when he was ready to step down, it made sense for me to take over that role as well. He also helped me get my job at Cumming & Co, as when I graduated, I was obviously job hunting in a pandemic, which is not the ideal scenario you want when you graduate. But yes, so it was a few weeks ago, he messaged me saying that he knew Cumming & Co would be looking for graduates soon and to send over my CV. 4 days later, I had an interview, and then the following Monday, I was offered the job. It was a very quick process, and I've been there. A week and a half later, I started that job. So it was absolutely brilliant, because back in first year, I didn't think, oh, connecting with this guy on LinkedIn is going to get me my first job. Absolutely not. So you never know where your network connections are going to lead you, and it's really impressive how far they can actually get you through things. So now I've got some just general tips and tricks for maintaining your network and advancing it a bit further. So first, when it comes to your CV and portfolio, I would highly recommend, especially for in-person networking events when they're safe to do again, have some online links to your CV and portfolio ready to share with people. Because if you've got a list of people you need to contact after the event, you may forget a few people on the list. So if you're in a discussion with someone about a potential role and you can send your details straight to them, it makes it a lot more efficient in that sense. Connecting with people and being active on social media. LinkedIn is really good for doing this. You can just update your profile as much as you want, and you put as much information as you like on your feed, whether that's example of your projects or just liking posts you're interested in. Your network will grow at a steady rate, I find. So that's always a good place to start your network, especially during a time when you can't see people. If you're in need of feedback and advice, ask contacts you specifically want to build a stronger network with, especially if it's like privately messaging or commenting on a post, specifically asking them for advice. They'll probably take it as a compliment and give you more feedback. So it's always a good way to build a network. Also, it's important to focus on how you can help others as well as how they can help you. If all you can do is share someone's post when they're looking for people to help them with a survey, do it, because you never know when you might need to call in a favour with them as well. So it's always important to keep that back and forth going. And ask questions. Like Oliver said, there is no stupid question, only stupid answers. I'll say there's no stupid questions, only funny ones. So you'll be fine either way. Ask whatever questions you like. And especially at in-person events, if you're a bit worried about how to break the ice, just asking what their favourite project is they're working on just now and the ice will break itself. It's pretty simple in that way. So it's not as intimidating as you might find to start your network. It is pretty simple in that sense. I can say that, but it's hard to start out, but you get there eventually. When it comes to the job search, these are some places I looked. Obviously, didn't work for me, but they're still good places to look anyway, and there's still lots of jobs coming up just now. So first, I'd say on LinkedIn, you can set notifications for specific roles and locations and not have to check it again. It'll just update you as and when things come up. So it's always a good place to go, and it takes the stress out of having to check daily if that's what you want to do. Also on LinkedIn, there's the CIAT Scotland group. There's been a lot of roles shared there recently, specifically in the Glasgow and Edinburgh area, I've noticed, for especially entry-level positions. So I would definitely look there. A new group on LinkedIn that I've set up with the chair of Scotland West region would be the Aspiration Scotland group. Right now, it tends to be more just for updates on Aspiration events, so it's still worthwhile joining. But we have agreed that if we see any graduate roles coming up, we're also going to share them in there as well, so it'll help with job hunting too. If you're not too fussed about what location and just want to be somewhere in the UK, CIAT emails, the weekly emails at the bottom, has usually a list of jobs that have came up that week, or you can search CIAT's website and see companies that are accredited by us and see what roles are available with them. Then you also have your general Indeed, Read, Glassdoor and such. Sometimes you do get a crossover between them and it's the same application just shown twice. So make sure you're not doing what I did and accidentally applying to the same role twice. Is what I was saying, but it's still really good to look at, and you usually get contacts to recruitment agencies. And although sometimes they have a bad reputation, the ones I've worked with have seemed pretty good. So it definitely wouldn't rule them out anyway. One new website I would highly recommend would be Collabed. It only went live on Monday, and they've kind of branded themselves as the extension of the open to work status on LinkedIn for the construction industry. So they have a section right now where you can network and see everyone who's a member of Collabed, and it's free to make an account. And there's also a space for companies to post roles that are available, but also a space for you to upload your CV. So if a company is looking for something specific, your portfolio and CV might come up to them first. So I would highly recommend joining. They're in the beta testing stage now, but I think later on this year, they'll also have a section available for CPDs, webinars and freelancing. So it seems like a really good place to start out just now as well. I would also recommend check company websites if you have specific companies you want to have a look at and would like to work for, as sometimes they'll share the role there first a day or two before putting it on LinkedIn, Indeed and such. And maybe that 2 days could be the difference between waiting a week for the reply and waiting a day. So you might get in pretty early with that one as well. Networking events outside of CIAT I thought I'd include, because although we do a lot, it's good to just keep your network open to other organisations. So Collabed, they've done really good webinars during the pandemic as well. It's been really good to attend, so I'd highly recommend checking them out. ICAT that I mentioned earlier, they've really good conferences. I think it's every year and a half or so. So their next one they're hoping to have in London in June. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for them for that one. And I believe they'll be running some sort of student event for that as well. So I highly recommend getting involved with that. You might get a little certificate and something else to put in your portfolio as well. Built Academy, they also do really good CPDs and such. They were meant to have one in Valencia, but obviously that's not happening anytime soon. But they've taken like a duck to water moving online and have actually started a podcast that they update weekly where they interview industry professionals and just any points of interest to do with the construction industry. So if podcasts are your thing, I'd highly recommend looking into them as it is free to listen to. So they seem like a really good bunch. And then Architects Benevolent Society is always a good contact to have. They're quite good for sharing CPDs, webinars, but also for any general support if you find you're going through a tough time during your studies or during your career. They're really good to contact to have. Now, I kind of blasted through that because I got excited when I started speaking about AT stuff. But if you have any further queries, obviously we have the Q&A later. But if you want to help me run aspiration events in future or have just any ideas you'd like to throw my way, feel free to send me an email, or if you want to start expanding your network, my LinkedIn is linked there, and I will always accept requests from students, so it's fine. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I will pass you back to John.
Great. So yeah, thanks very much, Alex. I'm going to, I know we're pushing the clock a little bit. There's no questions coming in the chat just now, so I probably won't feel too bad about taking an extra 15 minutes or so off your time. But very much, I'm going to be reiterating, adding some further context to what Amy and Oliver and Alex has said. And particularly fond on pushing their take-home messages, Amy's take-home messages, don't give up. It'll get tough at times, but don't give up. And Alex's kind of take-home message there in terms of the power of networking. And I loved her comment, whenever you're being invited to do a survey, do it. That is very key. Please do those, because there's students out there doing their dissertations right now who need this sort of help. And I'm probably going to also touch a little bit on that Hibbs et al. Quote, where it was, don't be you're not a CAD monkey. Back in my day, it was a CAD monkey, but now it seems it's a Revit monkey, which makes me feel even older than I possibly already am. So before I wrap up and hand over to Cheryl, I want to spend a few minutes just talking about specifically the career pathways and the themes and the specialities specifically within the AT career. Also things to be aware of when you're approaching an employer for that first or next job, how to enhance your portfolio, so picking up on some things that Oliver had mentioned, and a little advice on how to optimize your approach when you're looking for those jobs. And at the end, just like everyone else has done, I'll do my own fair share of signposting as well. So first off, I want to kick off with everyone's favorite thing to see on a slide, a pie chart. So this one's going to be worth it. So stick with me on this one. It's only a couple of slides of stats, but it'll all make sense. So hang in there. So at the start of 2020, there was 1.4 million small businesses that were registered with employees in the UK. Now, 13% of those businesses operate in what we call the construction sector, and 14 operated in the professional, scientific and technical activities sector. Now, that sector is where architectural design practices commonly sit. Now, those two sectors are the second and third largest employment sectors of our entire economy. Although some architectural companies classify as other or creative and arts, but the vast majority of the architectural technology jobs you'll be looking for will be in the second and third largest employers in the country. So that means there are 370,000 businesses in the UK that are classified as either construction and or professional, scientific and technical activity sectors. Together, they're responsible for 3.3 million jobs in the UK. So getting a little bit more specific now into AT type roles and jobs, construction of residential and non-residential buildings fall under the construction sector, and architectural technology and architectural design practices fall under that professional, scientific and technical activity sector. Together, they make up 19% of all businesses. That's almost a fifth of all businesses in the combined construction and professional activity sector. So that's 72,000 jobs that operate in construction of buildings and architectural services. Now, to the point and to the end of our little journey through BEIS statistics, and how can we use this data to help you calibrate your AT job search and your strategy moving forward? Well, 98% of the businesses that operate as construction of buildings and or architectural activities are micro or small businesses. So these are the wee architectural design practices that we've all seen and we love. And in many respects, they're the backbone of our architectural community. And they're the type of employers that most of us aspire to be part of whenever we first go to university, way back when we watched that first episode of Grand Designs. So remember, that's 72,000 UK businesses that are employers of architectural design and technology workers. So the picture is pretty clear. We should be advising you to ruthlessly target the micro and small architectural and construction businesses and optimizing your portfolio, CV and interview skills towards that demographic, right? That's what that looks like, right? Well, not particularly well, not quite. If you look a little bit deeper, and I do promise this is the last slide on statistics, you'll see that the number of jobs or people employed by the size of businesses, it's a very different picture. So our sector may be dominated by micro and small businesses like HOCO and Cumming & Co. and Sumner McDonald, but they make up less than 50% of the jobs in this space. And medium and larger businesses, whilst they're less often in our employment space, together they provide slightly over half of the jobs in this employment space. So we know that now. And what can we do with this information? Well, as you've heard from our previous speakers, jobs do come to you in many different ways. But the brunt force and most common approach is the cold calling type of applications. And this tends to be mostly effective, but not without its challenges. Like we all know, the word architect and architecture is common to not just us in the construction sector, but it's also common to those in computing science and the digital sector, which can often skew the results you find when you're searching for architectural jobs. Furthermore, some agencies like CDM, for example, they still don't list architectural technologist as a definitive job search. Rather, they use the word architectural technician. And some jobs even say part 1 or part 2 architects in the job title, which can be very off-putting for us. But when you read the job description, it sounds almost perfect for a final year or graduate AT. So all of that broadens the search parameters, adds more time, and ultimately adds a lot more heartbreak to the process. Plus, the jobs that you find in web searches tend to be behind agents, and those agents tend to conceal the name of the company to prevent you going straight to them, which is a bit of a bugger for us as architectural technologists, because we really like to optimize and calibrate our message to who we're speaking to. It's a big part of who we are. So is there a solution? Well, no, not really. Finding and applying for jobs is still a real pain in the ass. And even for a 30-something-year-old like myself who was looking for a job about 6 or 7 months ago, it's a really hateful experience, especially around the summertime when the job market is flooded by younger, more talented early career ATs like yourselves with eye-wateringly amazing visual portfolios and some fantastic hands-on experience. It makes those of us in the kind of senior element of our career feel a little bit out of date. So there's no easy solution, but again, context might help you to develop a strategy in finding a job. So the question now is, how do AT employers find their staff? How do each of those business sizes, small, micro, medium, and large, how do they advertise and find their employees? Well, in general, national construction companies and most house builders fall into the medium and large size category. And they will have specific graduate, trainee and or early career schemes. And you'll only find access to these on their web pages. Some open their schemes as early as September for a start in the following May. Others open kind of now or a few months from now. But very few of them even bother going and advertising openly because they know the job, they know that the graduates will come to them. Small, medium and some small SMEs, small businesses, don't have the overheads and budgets to run in-house HR teams, but they also don't have a huge amount of time to do advertising and do vetting of candidates themselves, so they tend to employ these recruitment agencies like Hayes, etc. Now, some of which are a real pain to work with, but as Alex said, some are wonderful people. But all of them make the process a little more muddy for us as ATs trying to calibrate our portfolio for exactly who we're trying to target. But agencies are a necessary evil for that business size. Now, micro SMEs, micro businesses, and many of the small size business with no HR department, no desire to work with agencies, no desire to give agencies a cut of their profits or a cut of a new employee salary. They rely on the zero budget approach of word of mouth, networking, recommendations, and suggestions. For the businesses that have slightly less money and even less time, they always base their employment, like Alex had said, on recommendations from their professional network. And this is why some jobs are filled even before they get to advertising stage. And this is the true power of a professional network and the value of being part of a regional organisation like CIAT, Aspirations, CIOB, RICS, and others like that. There is no right way about finding a job. The best you can do is to keep all your challenge of opportunity open. And remember, you may not want to end a long AT career in a large business like a national contractor or a house builder, but they do have amazing early career frameworks, fantastic early progression schemes and dedicated mentors, and they are a really good opportunity to kickstart a career. Many of my close colleagues started in house building, they're still in house building and will end their career in house building because it is also in a very innovative market, especially in Scotland. So in these last couple of slides, I want to share some further insight from employers on the topic of CV, portfolio and interview. Now, harking back to my stats slide, it is crucial to calibrate your portfolio to the person receiving it, and importantly, their business. Now, some larger businesses like house builders don't really care about portfolios, especially at early career or graduate scheme level, because after all, if you do get a job with them, you have very little option but to build what they're telling you to build and design to their house types. But that doesn't mean that portfolios are a waste of time for that employer. But portfolios do carry significantly more weight when you're interviewing for a business at the micro and small level. In preparation for this event, I asked AT employers what they most want to see in a student, graduate, or early career AT portfolio. Now, I've created a list on this slide with some advice, and some of that does match what Oliver was saying. But the strong message, just like Oliver said, the strong message from our sample of AT employers was, when setting out your portfolio, avoid the temptation of slipping into the mindset of a Part 1 or Part 2 architecture student. Ensure that the technology part of the architecture always stands out in your portfolio. So for those of you who may still be slightly confused about the difference between a Part 1 and Part 2 early career architect and an early career AT, always remember this: architecture and architect school is firmly rooted in the humanities, arts, and social science. Architecture students are studying for a Bachelor and Masters of Art. AT is a STEM subject: science, technology, engineering, and math. All ATs studying an AT program in the UK are studying for a Bachelor of Science. Make sure that science comes through in your portfolios. So if you can, and if the agent doesn't block you, calibrate your CV and portfolio to the type of employer that's offering you the job or that you're targeting. So this may mean that you'll have several versions of the same portfolio or several versions of the same CV. If your job is being advertised by a company like HOCO with an online portfolio of purely domestic, then you're wasting your time showing Amy and showing Danny and the people at HOCO your amazing non-domestic constructions. Now, whilst it might be nice having some diversity in there, you always want to calibrate your message to who you're speaking to. And finally, remind the person you're sending your portfolio to that you either have studied or you are studying at an institute that CIAT classifies as a centre of excellence. Well, we've all seen those jobs advertised stating the really annoying requirements like minimum of 2 years experience or senior positions only. And those jobs that you apply for and hear nothing about, and those ones that disappear before the application closing date, the job market can be daunting. It's often frustrating and it's sometimes really cruel. So I thought it'd be useful to provide just a little bit more context from that employer's perspective. Now, this is purely from a business standpoint, and being a business owner myself, I'm speaking to those. This is purely from a business perspective. Every new employee is a capital investment. Now, like all investments, there's a clock that starts, and that clock dictates the length of time before that employee breaks even. And to put it even more brutally, how quickly will my new employee become self-sufficient and start bringing in their own contracts? Now, that number, that clock is different for every person at every level. So senior ATs will demand a higher salary than early career ATs, but they're almost instantaneously self-sufficient and money generators from day one. So when you're reading the next job advert, or you're looking at the potential employer in the eye at the interview, always keep this in mind. How can I show that I'm a good investment? How can I de-risk this for them? Now, as an early career AT, the main and most valuable thing that you can do is show that you have enthusiasm for the type of work that that business is doing, demonstrate that you're a problem solver, and show that you have the resources and can be self-sufficient and resourceful when problems arise, and show that you can be adaptable. Describe how agile and adaptable you can be when working on multiple elements of the same project or multiple projects at the same time. Now, just to reassure you there, because that may have come across a bit harsh, anyone that employs a student, graduate, or early career AT will fully appreciate that they come with a certain level of support, guidance, teaching, and mentoring. And you should get that. With every new job, you should get that level of mentoring and guidance. And again, that's the power of having a network like CIAT, because if there's someone in your practice who doesn't quite know, there's a very good chance that someone in your network will have the answer, just like Oliver has said. So as an early career AT, you can't help that you have lack of experience. You're helping that right now by being here at this event, but you can work out on how quickly you will become self-sufficient. And the biggest single reason why micro and small businesses won't, can't, don't, or have stopped employing student, graduate, or early career ATs is loyalty. Now, by this, I mean, if you're fresh out of the classroom and into a business, the business doesn't expect you to be instantaneously self-sufficient. They are expecting an investment period to invest in you with their time and to bring you up to skilled with how they do business. The risk for an early career leaving that business soon after they've become self-sufficient, that is the single largest fear and risk of most micro and small businesses when interviewing early career ATs. So keep that in mind whenever you're out there producing your strategy for approaching businesses. There is no wrong way to be an AT. Now, that's my big take-home message today. And that's what I would like you to walk away with from this presentation is there's no wrong way of being an AT. Everyone in this slide is an AT. They have all an AT qualification from ENU. Some came from college, some came in from industry, some came from secondary education with school leaver. Some worked as architectural technicians whilst they studied at Napier. Others worked in non-construction retail jobs. Others never worked during their study at all. Some have AT in their title, most don't. We have examples of AT careers in house building, national knowledge centres for innovation like CSIC and BIM Academy, the heritage sector, both at product and authority level. We even have examples of ATs that own and manage their own companies, like here specified by, and certainly Danny is a very good example of seeing a gap in the market and addressing that with his HOCO company. So a reason for these pathways relates to the diverse and multifaceted skill sets that describes our AT profession. So we have specialities, like I said, in house building, non-domestic, acousticians, energy, sustainability, structural system designers, material system designers, BIM managers, heritage and historic retrofit. Now CIAT now recognises two of those specialities, a chartered environmentalist and conservation register. So the thing to remember is, unfortunately, jobs that would be brilliant for an early career AT don't always necessarily have the word architectural technologist in the title or even in the description. That has begun to change, and there are movements at political level to remove the word architect as a catch-all term for anyone who designs buildings. Now that will filter down to all of us eventually when we win that war, but for now, when searching for jobs, please do broaden your search to include the likes of house builders, graduate schemes, local authority, planning, building standards, heritage sector, property management, acoustics, energy efficiency, timber system designers, etc. And never be disappointed with your first or even second job if it isn't what you imagined. As Oliver has said, careers are a long and very fluid construct of our experiences, and we can navigate where we go with the more experience we build. Most importantly, remember that the AT community is broad but very close-knit cohort of professionals. If you have studied or are studying at ENU, the AT professionals that you meet in the central belt of Scotland are most likely going to have spent some time at Napier. And the same can be true in the northeast for Robert Gordon University. So I have decided to showcase, apart from the companies who graciously allowed their staff to join us today, HOCO, Cumming & Co, and Sumner MacDonald, I want to showcase a couple of companies who are registered with our CIAT headquarters there in London, who have a strong culture of promoting the AT profession and allowing you to promote your CIAT chartership. Now, I'm not saying to leave this session and instantly mail bomb every single one of these companies, because that would be unethical. But if you can see who is advertising the job, and it's not hidden behind a wall by an agent, then you'll know that these companies and the ones you've heard from today have a positive culture of recognizing AT professionals and promote CIAT membership. And many have strong social media output in terms of Twitter and LinkedIn. So again, that allows you to keep up to speed with what's happening there on the cold front of the industry. Now, I've been asked to add this slide from our CIAT members down south. This is the typical CIAT graduate progression pathway. So as Alex had said, if you're a student on an AT program, congratulations, you're already technically a member of CIAT. Now, what you want to do upon graduation is upgrade that to an associate membership. And then you want to work towards becoming, like Oliver, a full chartered member. And that can take different amount of time depending on where you end up working and how much of the competencies you can complete within the time frame. I've seen it done in as little as 2 years. I've seen it done as long as 7 years. It's somewhere in between that. Finally, I want to draw your attention to the Ciat Job Search, which you've heard about already. And the main advantage here is that these guys do not put the company behind a wall. So you know who is advertising that position. And our social media coordinator, Gary Mees, reposts Ciat jobs in our Ciat Scotland region LinkedIn page. So you can keep an eye there as well. But also, I want to draw your attention to the Talent Retention Scheme from the Construction Leadership Council, started at the end of July there last year. Initiated by UK Government's Secretary of State, TRS is an independent employer-led programme to keep fresh talent entering the construction sector. So do have a look at that website and see if it's worth registering and getting their support on in your pathway. And believe it or not, as Alex has said, the Architects Benevolent Society is another one of those instances where the word architect also includes us. They aren't a search engine, but they do provide you with some additional benefits and redirect you to Renovo as a search engine. But I'm adding them here, just like Alex did, to highlight their mental health and well-being and money and debt advice counselling services that they provide to ATs. So from our friends over there in University of Ulster, they have produced a document called Changing Attitudes Towards Mental Health and Early Career AT Professionals. Now you can find that on our CIAT page through the Knowledge Zone and through publications. The link's at the very top there. That's a very interesting read. It allows you to see how our culture, our AT culture, can be very damaging to your mental health and well-being, especially when you're constantly putting yourself out there on the line, you're being judged by people for your designs. So that's a very interesting read. Now, Alex did mention that the Architects Benevolent Society do have additional benefits. So I want to draw your attention to this YouTube video on the CIAT YouTube channel. So from minutes 36 to 47, you'll see Tom Shore from the Architects Benevolent Society, and he'll be speaking about the relevance of that society helping student and early career ATs with debt, money, and well-being. I also have to mention the CIAT AT Awards. This is certainly an opportunity, like Amy had said, this is certainly an opportunity to enhance your CV, enhance your portfolio, and the conditions for that can be found on that link. But your programme leader, if you're still at university, should have all the details for that. And I also want to list a few organisations, magazines, journals, websites that I find helpful. Ones like First in Architecture, the AT Journal, and Collabed, all very powerful movements.